Welcome to story time again. So today, I have no plan for today. I know the last three videos were all about the witches and the cave, and they sort of went into sequence, but right now I'm just gonna go up. Heritage! Oh, I like this one. My heritage. So here's the image. There's a lot of rocks in my images. There's a lot of mountains, rocky roads. For me, mountains are really the ancestors. It's that strong, imposing, been here forever um, thing that we face every day. And it's, on one hand, it's feels secure. On the other hand, it's very imposing. So, um, heritage. And here comes the story. So, my father was born in Germany on the very last day of 1934. He was only 10 when World War II came to an end. And while he had no other role than to survive the bombings, my German heritage left me with a chip on my shoulder. As I've mentioned before, I traveled a lot as a child, and whenever someone asked me where I was from, I was ashamed to admit that I was half German. In the hope of making a good first impression, I'd always start by saying that I was half Canadian instead. I never truly understood why I felt so bad, considering that I had played no part in the war, but one day while watching a movie, I finally understood. My dad came to sit next to me. A few minutes later, he said, it's the nasty Germans again. That's when it hit me. It was the early 80s, and while the war had been over for almost 40 years, Germans were still being used as the archetype of the bad guys. The movies had inadvertently taught me to hate myself. It took a long time for me to undo that conditioning, and possibly I still carry some of it with me today. Even if in my mind I had made my peace, I'm not sure my body has left it all behind. I'm aware that most of the baggage I carry is not as obvious as my German heritage, or shame and guilt. I carry baggage that I cannot explain, simply because my ancestors carried it too. They handed it down in subtle ways, be it through their transmissions of values, fears, habits, anger, or frustration. As long as I don't unpack it, I will do just as they have done and pass it on to my children. They will inherit my fears, my habits, my thought patterns, and my judgment. The hairs raise on my neck when I recall the day I told my little boy to be careful not to turn into his dad, because he'd have a hard time finding someone who would love him if he could not control his anger. I regretted these words the moment they left my mouth, and I have been regretting them ever since. I know it came from a place of love, and fear as well, of course. I wanted him to find happiness. But that wasn't all it was. Baggage, rocks, trauma. Those words were the reflection of my own trauma, the feeling of not being good enough, the worry that I would not be accepted, the fear of not being loved. I didn't want him to be the bad guy. By wanting to break the cycle, I was unknowingly repeating it. I invite you to, if you have children or nieces or nephews, to reflect upon, or even if you don't, and you sometimes think about, oh, when I'll have children, I'll do this differently, I'll do that. Just reflect upon the values that, or the things that you might sort of be transferring to them. It's all in goodwill. It's all out of love. It's all out of protection. But sometimes, and very often, when we're trying to protect and save the next generation, we're actually just transferring our own fears. If you want to download the image, look at the link below. It'll take you to the website. And if you'd like to buy the book at a discounted price, you can find the link there too. See you next time.